Ambassador, welcome to the program.
Well, it's so nice to talk to you again.
Well, we're talking in the aftermath of a presidential election in the United States. Did China expect this to be the result? And what is your official reaction? I know your president has already spoken to Mr. Trump.
You're right. Well, you see, this election is an American election, and decision was made by the American people. What we want to see in China is a smooth transition and a continued growth of our bilateral relations so that we can bring even greater benefits to our two peoples.
Well, I understand what you're saying. What do you expect then to be a continuation of the relationship? Because if anything, Donald Trump as a campaigner really singled out China as almost a country that he was going to have a trade war with, because his electorate decided that they were being put out of work by cheap Chinese imports. So you know what he said about 45% tariffs, about trade barriers. Do you expect that to materialize?
I think our bilateral relations are based on and defined by our growing common interests and mutual needs. Our two countries are cooperating with each other in so many areas, including economic cooperation and in trade relations, mutual investment, energy, counterterrorism, and so many international and regional issues. So this growing common interest, I think, will determine the future direction of this relationship. And as far as the economic relations are concerned, I think it's a mutually beneficial one.
And what about your reaction then to what candidate Trump said, that, you know, China is raping the United States, and again saying that he would impose a tariff on Chinese imports? We cannot continue to allow China to rape our country, you know, labeling your country a currency manipulator. These are all areas that you've considered red lines in the past. How will you change that view if you can?
Well, as I said earlier, this relationship between our two countries is a mutually beneficial one. Actually, in the last few decades, both countries have benefited a great deal from this growing relationship and increasing cooperation. I'm quite confident this will continue.
But there are some in China who suggest that tariffs could be imposed on some of all of imports from the United States, even from the services sector. Is China prepared to get engaged in a war of that kind with the United States?
We never want to have any war, trade war, other war with other countries. And besides, both China and the United States are members of the WTO, so we should all play by the WTO rules.
Let me move on to climate change. In 2012, Donald Trump tweeted, "The concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make U.S. manufacturing non-competitive." What do you make of that? And what would your preference be in terms of keeping the climate accord that was signed in Paris last year?
Well, both China and the United States took a lead in reaching this agreement in Paris on climate change. I think climate change is a global challenge, and all countries have to work together to respond to it. And whatever other countries might do or might not do, China will continue to make genuine efforts to respond to climate change and try to aim at green and sustainable development for ourselves.
And what do you make of Trump's tweet that it's a hoax, global warming, created by you in China to make U.S. manufacturing non-competitive?
I think that there are people elsewhere in the world who believe that this issue was created by the United States to contain China's economic development.
Let me ask you about the Obama administration's pivot to Asia. You didn't like that. China did not like that. Thought it was threatening, thought it was operating in its sphere. Do you believe that a President Trump is going to be just as interventionist and committed to that pivot, or do you believe that he might be more isolationist?
Well, you see, Asia-Pacific has maintained general stability in the last few decades, and is now the most economically dynamic region in the world. I think it would serve everybody's interest if we could go forward on this track. And China is ready and willing to, with all other partners, for the continued stability and prosperity in the region. And we certainly see the United States as one of the major partners in this regard.
But did you expect this outcome? Did China expect it?
Well, this is an American election. We watch very closely, but we make no comments. We take no side. We just look forward to continued cooperation with the American government and, of course, continued friendship with the American people.